Okay, so today I want to talk to you about adrenal fatigue and exercise intolerance. So this video is for anyone who is frustrated, who is exhausted, who wants to get back into being active, who doesn't handle stress very well, who crash in the middle of the day, who don't have good concentration, focus, motivation, drive, low libido, not handling stress very well, and is unable to exercise. And how frustrating is it when you're told, hey, Mary, all you need to do is go exercise and everything will be fine. But when you go and exercise, everything isn't fine. You're exhausted, you're fatigued, you're burnt out. And how are you going to exercise when you don't have the energy to exercise? That's what I want to talk to you about today. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I've suffered with my own adrenal fatigue based problem, and I can't tell you how frustrating it was for me to be exhausted, burnt out, not being able to exercise, going to the doctor and being told that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with my blood work. There's no such thing as adrenal fatigue. Your blood tests are normal. And why don't you just go and exercise more? Or why don't you try to take some medications to lower your depression or your anxiety? Or why don't you eat healthier? When the doctor themselves looked like they could use their own advice. That's what I want to talk to you about today. So adrenal fatigue. I always start off the lives or the videos that I make in terms of what is adrenal fatigue. And it's a very poor term. At the end of the day, it's a terrible term to describe a condition that is very, very real, but in the medical literature and in the peer-reviewed journals, and even in the medical schools, it's not being taught because ultimately 90% of adrenal-based problems occur outside of the adrenal glands. Meaning you have the brain that signals the adrenals, you have the hormones that the adrenals make, the receptor sites at which they act at. That's really important. That's a major important problem. And one of the things I would tell you is that a good example of that is, say, a first responder. You can say that a first responder is not responding to an emergency call when they knock on the door and no one is there. That's like what's happening with an adrenal fatigue-based problem, is that at the receptor site, a lot of the times that hormone can't get into the cell because of cell membrane problems, because of poor quality signaling, because of not being able to be broken down effectively. There's a lot of problems that occur outside of the adrenal glands that aren't being diagnosed from your blood tests, and your doctor is saying there's no such thing. But meanwhile, up to 90% shows in the research that the problems with a fatigue-based problems occurs outside of the adrenal glands. So it's really important to understand, but I want to get back into what adrenal fatigue is. So when you have fatigue, exhaustion, you're not able to handle your stress very well, you get shaky, lightheaded, and jittery potentially with your meals, or you crash after a meal, there's a blood sugar component there. Crashing in the middle of the day, there's a circadian rhythm issue where you don't have boundings amount of energy in the morning, or you have more energy at night, so your circadian rhythm is disrupted. Hormones are imbalanced, you don't have libido, you don't have drive, you don't have motivation, you don't recover, you have some brain fog. There's ultimately all these different things. Sorry, my back is itchy. You have all these different things that are going on and you're being told there's no such thing. So there is a real thing. I want to start off with that. But let's talk about exercise intolerance. So if you're one of these people that are not handling stress very well, don't have a lot of energy, and then you can't go to the gym because you can't do any type of activity, you can't go hiking with the family, you can't go even out food shopping, or you can't go for a walk, or you can't go on an afternoon adventure without crashing. That's what exercise intolerance is. Or you can't go to the gym and you can't sustain riding on a recumbent bike or going on an elliptical or going on a treadmill because you're just exhausted. You can't have a conversation. You just can't respond to exercise. You're intolerant. If that's what's going on for you, what I want you to realize is you have much more problems going on in your body than just adrenal issues. You have much more problems going on in your body than adrenal issues. And coming from someone who was somewhat OCD myself, obsessive compulsive with exercise, I came from the other side. And I'm sure you can relate, where you went to the gym one time, maybe you go to the gym 4 times or 5 times or 6 times or 7 times a week, and you're exercising too much to the point where, or you're teaching a class. I was a personal trainer, so I would have a client at 6 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, and I would have, say, an 18-hour day of which I trained 6 or 7 or 8 people, but I also worked out in between, and I did that 7 days on. And that's going to ultimately deplete your energy stores. And what I want you to take out of this is, if you have exercise intolerance, you're depleting your energy stores. You don't have any resiliency, and you don't have any metabolic reserve. There's some big challenges there. So does this sound like you ultimately, let's make it so you can see it. You have no energy, you get tired easily, you can't handle any exercise, whether it's the intensity, it's the duration, it's the frequency, without feeling wiped out. I mean, that was me. That's clients that I work with. They go to the doctor, they're told that there's nothing wrong with their blood work, that everything's normal, that there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue, and sorry, I can't help you. That's what I'm finding, and that's what I'm finding in the Facebook groups that I moderate, that a lot of people don't have. Their biggest problem when I ask them, hey, what's your biggest challenge as it relates to your health, is I can't tolerate any activity. And so doctors aren't testing. There's no such thing as adrenal fatigue. Your blood tests are normal. You're prescribed medication. And at the end of the day, they don't launch a full investigation. And they don't launch a full investigation because their framework is wrong. They're not looking at what's going wrong in the body. It's not just an HPA axis dysfunction. Now, people will say there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue. It's called HPA axis dysfunction. And I would say to you that that's not even an accurate term either. HPA axis, what does that mean? It means that your hypothalamus signals to your pituitary signals to the adrenals output some form of stress hormones, whether it's your glucocorticoids, cortisol, or it's your mineralocorticoids, aldosterone, or it's even your sex hormones like DHEA. That's true, that's what it does. But when you have complete exhaustion and your demand for responding to the stress doesn't equal the supply of energy to be able to meet that stress, you're going to have a breakdown at the cellular level. And HPA axis does not describe a cellular level breakdown. It really doesn't. So what's really going on is you have a mitochondrial fatigue. Now, if you go to the doctor and you say, hey, doctor, I know I don't have this adrenal fatigue thing because it doesn't really exist. And then I know you can call it an HPA axis dysfunction, and that's speaking your language. But I really believe, based on watching videos and seeing this guy, Dr. Joel, talk about mitochondrial fatigue, I feel I got a mitochondrial fatigue problem. They'll look at you like you're crazy, because mitochondrial diseases are looked at in the medical field as black and white, meaning you either have a mitochondrial disease, but there's no shades of gray. And that's a real shame, because ultimately that's why you have exercise intolerance, is you do have a mitochondrial-based fatigue. Your demand for energy is not being met by supply. And at the end of the day, when you're in science class and you learn about how cells work, you learn that the mitochondria of the cell is where your ATP production takes place. And if you're not able to produce ATP, you're not going to have a lot of energy. And then your cells that have mitochondria inside those cells are not going to perform ultimately at their fullest level. And those cells make up tissues, and those tissues make up organs, and those organs make up systems. So now your cardiovascular system, your detox pathways, your GI system, your endocrine system, your neurological system, all of those systems are not working at its full potential, and HPA axis does not describe it as what is actually going on. So I have a couple ways that you can test, and I'm sorry that my writing is so small, but it's called an NADH challenge. And I'll actually turn it a little bit more for you so you can see it a little bit better. The only problem is you have this ring light that's really annoying for me. So if someone could help me do a better video where I don't have my lighting in there. But what I want to do is I want to show you what an NADH challenge is. So an NADH challenge is a nutrient. It's a mitochondrial nutrient. It's an energetic nutrient. It acts as a signaler in the body. And this is a really good way to test if your mitochondria are tired. It's called an NADH challenge. And I learned this information from a good friend of mine named Dr. John Thomas, so I'll give credit where credit is due. But you start with taking 25 to 30 milligrams of NAD or NADH, preferably letting it dissolve underneath your tongue. The supplement that I like is made by Premier Research Labs, and you do that 2 hours before you take any food. You do not do it prior to bed, because ultimately if your mitochondria are working effectively when you take the NAD, you're going to get a little boost. So think of NAD as kind of fanning the fire. And when you fan the fire and it ignites a little bit, it means that there's a little fire there. But if you fan the fire and it goes out, I mean, there's a little fire there. So some people will do really poorly with NAD. And we know if that's the case on the NADH challenge, they're going to have really wiped out and beaten down mitochondria. So basically, they don't do it before bed. Best to do it in the morning. If you notice any changes within 10 to 15 minutes, that's called a healthy energetic response. We know that your mitochondria are in need of support because you talk about subjectively, you're tired, you can't tolerate exercise, you have all these 30,000 view foot level symptoms going on. But no one's telling you, but you do an NADH challenge and you respond with energy. Great. Then what we would suggest is maybe you start taking some NADH. That could be a really good nutrient for you. You could do up to, with your doctor's advice, 20, 40, 60 milligrams. Some research shows that you could even do more than that, but I wouldn't recommend any of that without talking to your healthcare provider first. But you could get a negative energy response. That negative energy response would tell me that your mitochondria are tired. It's like taking a fan to a really poorly burning fire and it extinguishes, it doesn't light up. That's a big problem. That can be a result of a lot of different things. It could be you have very low CoQ10 levels, so maybe you're put on a statin and your CoQ10 levels are low. You could do an organic acid test to see if that's the case. We suggest going up to 200, 400, 800 milligrams of CoQ10, but again, make sure your doctor is going to recommend that. It also means you probably have poor antioxidant levels. Could also mean your phase 1 of liver detox is slow and your phase 2 is also slow. It also could be that you just ate food and you're not getting that response. But if you don't get any response, so some people will say, well, what happens if I don't necessarily notice a boost, but I also don't feel depleted either, because sometimes you won't. Then I would say wait to the next day and double your dose and try 50 to 60 milligrams to see if you have any challenge, any responses. So I would suggest that. The other thing we suggest for fatigue is D-ribose. D-ribose is a cellular energy producing. It's a sugar. Now, some people say, well, I can't take it. I would say if you're exhausted and burnt out, you may want to try pulsing it. Start with 1 gram. Try it 3 times a day at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then you could up it to 5 to 6 grams per day, 5 to 6 3 times a day. And then some people have gone up to 60 milligrams, so that would be 20 grams 3 times a day. Again, this would be something I wouldn't recommend without some form of provider or some kind of a proper workup first. But these are some of the things we'll do to support mitochondrial-based support. So NADH challenge, do 20 milligrams 2 hours before any meal, first thing in the morning. see if you have an energetic response. You notice some kind of energy. It's not like it's going to be like turning the power on, but you notice, yeah, I kind of feel a little boost. Then that's a good sign your mitochondria isn't whipped. If you feel really tired and exhausted from it, that probably means it is. You need that's part 2 of this video, but it means that you have some major challenges going on in your body, and that usually means identifying the challenge of what's creating that. And if there's no change, then the next day double it. The other thing we recommended is doing D-ribose, making sure you're doing maybe 1 gram, and you can do that 3 times a day. You can make your way up to 5 to 6 grams 3 times a day. And some people have gone up to 60 grams, which would be 20 grams 3 times a day. Some other mitochondrial-based nutrients that we like are acetylcarnitine, CoQ10, PQQ, alpha-lipoic acid, vitamin E, vitamin C, melatonin, minerals. Those are all really great mitochondrial-based nutrients. But here's what you need to do. You need to launch a proper investigation. Proper investigation means you need to do proper blood work. That doesn't just mean, and that really is annoying with having that ring light be there, apologize for that. That doesn't necessarily mean you say, okay, the test that I did, because I can't tell you how many times when I look at someone's blood work and it's incomplete. They don't have all the testing that you need to see on there. It means complete thyroid, minerals, hopefully, homocysteine, ferritin, complete hormone-based testing, and assessing it from a functional standpoint. So many people aren't being told effectively what's going on. An organic acid test or an OAT test, it does look at your mitochondrial markers. It looks at how well you burn protein, carbs, and fats. It also looks at your B vitamin markers and your detox pathways. Awesome, awesome test. Probably the best test, I would say, for assessing mitochondrial health. Dutch hormone testing, definitely want to see how the HPA axis is being impacted, putting all the puzzle pieces together, looking at a functional DNA test. I can't tell you how important. I've done so many videos on why that is super, super important. And then specific epigenetic testing. You don't see that at the bottom, but it says specific epigenetic testing. The reason why I want to have specific epigenetic testing is, do I suspect mold? Do I suspect viruses? Do I suspect heavy metal testing? Do I what was the word I was saying? Do I suspect that there is some kind of GI disturbance? If all those things are suspected, then we need to get to the root cause of what your mitochondria is being whipped down with so that you can get your energy back for exercise. Hopefully that made sense. So I want to continue to give you these quick little videos to help you understand a little bit better what's going on in your body. Certainly I work with clients all over the world, and I look for people that are really decisive and know that this is something that they need to get fixed. They can't stand another day. They're ready to get it fixed yesterday. They're frustrated and they're ready to do whatever it takes. If that sounds like you, then what I want you to do is sign up for a 45-minute consultation, no charge, with me, and we'll get really clear on where are you now, where do you want to get to, and why aren't you getting there, and how's it showing up. And if I decide that I think I can help you, I'll tell you the exact steps, what you need to do to get there. The call's totally free. If we don't work together, that's totally cool. It just means that you're going to get the information so that you can get your health back. If I feel I can help you, I'll tell you exactly what I think you should do to get your health back, what it would look like. But I want to make sure that you're an action taker, you're ready to get it fixed yesterday, you're going to be coachable, and you're going to do everything it takes to get your health back. So my name's Dr. Joel Rosen, and I look forward to ending your exercise intolerance nightmare. Have an awesome day.